I was privileged with
perspective.
the topic of personal revelation. So for those of us who are newer in the gospel, or maybe, you know, our younger audience, you know, personal revelation is the ability to receive promptings and guidance from God through feelings. Sometimes that can manifest in like opportunities that are open to us. Priesthood leaders oftentimes are manifestations of that revelation that we can receive. But the question that I had was how do we know if it's revelation or if it's our own personal thoughts and feelings? And I wrote out a list that gives us some parameters, like criteria for if we can know if it's from the Lord or not. And the first one, if you guys disagree, feel free, but I'm just going to read them off. The first one is you must have faith that you'll receive an answer and believe in God and in Jesus Christ. I think that's pretty non-controversial.
I'm waiting for
it. Personal revelation does not contradict revealed doctrines and teachings in Scripture and modern prophets. I think that's pretty...
Yeah, it doesn't go against it. I guess you could, I mean, if, you know, we deal with a lot of, I wouldn't say enemies, just you know, banter from the church. It just kind of
disaffected members.
It kind of depends on what you call doctrine at this point. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And to comment on that, I think that the church is, right, because it's a constant restoration, right? As President Russell M. Nelson, sorry, President Nelson.
They gonna president. They gonna crack on.
Yeah, don't disrespect my president. Don't disrespect my president.
He shared with us that it's a constant restoring of these true principles, these doctrines, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at church history, right? And obviously there's been some very controversial statements made, but as we kind of go through the years, we see that there's been a refining of church statements, right? But that's only done because we have priesthood authority. Yes. Priesthood authority can look back and say, you know what? I see what this has done. We can know definitively that this wasn't of God.
At some point in I guess in the faith, right? We can talk about before Christ came down, the craziness in which they were living in. You know what I'm saying? Like that stuff you try to bring that stuff in today, that would not fly.
Yeah.
But it worked for them because it applied to them. And I'm sure 200 years from now, people are going to probably say the same thing about us. But anyways, I digress.
The principles don't change, right? The principles don't change.
I digress.
The third point that I had was that personal revelation can only be received pertaining to things within your jurisdiction, your calling, your stewardship, and family.
Oh yeah, so them dudes that say that I felt the Spirit that you should marry me. It don't apply to that. It don't apply to that.
There's a funny story by Hartman Rector Jr. He was of the 70, and he actually gave a great devotional talk to BYU, but it was a story of him as a bishop or a leader of some sorts in the church. He had two young men come to him and say, hey, I received revelation that this girl's going to marry me. The other dude was like, no, I received revelation that this girl's going to marry me. And Hartman Rector Jr. is like, dang, I got to see the girl now. It was the girl. He talks with the girl, and the girl's like, I don't want anything to do with either of them. You know what I mean? Like it's people oftentimes impose their own selfish desires and think that that's personal revelation. You know what I mean?
It's from God. But anyway, so my fault. I keep interrupting with these things.
Hey, people need to hear it.
Call them out.
These last few points might be controversial. I don't know.
Okay.
Personal revelation is edifying and it invites the Spirit, especially with others who are in tune with it. Personal revelation does not bring contention or discomfort.
It might bring discomfort, but maybe you grow in that discomfort. Because if they said like, if someone felt like Johnny, there was that one time you told me about, you felt compelled to start like wearing deodorant. Like
that was a recent revelation, brother. Is that what that was?
And it might make you feel a little uncomfortable. But the thing is, it was better for you though. You know what I mean?
That was a revelation received yesterday, huh? I'm sorry, Tyler.
No, but y'all go turn this into a holy place. You talk like that.
No, I had to throw that one in there because I know you were gonna say it to me. I was gonna say it to you, so I had to beat you to the punch. But no, that is my take on it. I do think that maybe some discomfort. You guys don't think that maybe some revelation could be uncomfortable? Because I know for sure Layman and Lemuel for sure felt uncomfortable when they had.
after the revelation their dad had.
When personal revelation is received, right? When it's received, when it's accepted, I think that it doesn't bring that discomfort, contention. You know what I mean? I think of Galatians, Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23, and it talks about the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Joy, right? And that's a good guideline for, that's how we should feel when the Spirit is speaking to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you think you're receiving revelation, but your spiritual affairs are not in order, there's a good chance you're not really receiving revelation. Doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but it does mean that we have to be in tune with the Spirit, which can't be done if we're breaking commandments. What do you guys think?
That's a good one.
You think so?
That's tough.
You know, I'm always gonna play devil's advocate.
All right, bro. Here we go. Give it to us.
No, I think just personal experience, because I think, I'm not trying to out my dad, but there's a period of time where I don't think my dad was like very heavily involved with church. I don't think he even had the Melchizedek priesthood at the time. But there are certain things that he did that we felt was divine intervention. But you're right. I do think you had to be in tune with the Spirit. And if you're intentionally breaking commandments, but you know what? Never mind. I think you are right, because at that point, the magnitude of a covenant man versus the magnitude of someone trying to find themselves in the gospel are probably
A repentant
different.
person.
Yeah, probably different. But
I agree. Because I love that one phrase from Elder Jeffrey R. Holland, where he says, like, repentance can be as quick as just saying, like, confessing to the Lord, and then making those strivings to be better. You know what I mean? And so I think after that, like, a repentant person is someone who can receive revelation for themselves. Now, if my bishop was at a party this past weekend, right? And he's over here trying to give me counsel and revelation that he's received, I would be very skeptical.
Very skeptical. Yeah, you're skeptical of the stories. I feel it for sure. And then the last one?
Last one, personal revelation does not defy all reason or logic. Most matters, we can reasonably assume what the correct course of action is.
My question before we get into it is, how do you guys individually feel the Spirit?
I feel like everybody has their own language with the Spirit, right? Mine personally comes from reading the scriptures and things that make sense in my mind, right? I think about Doctrine and Covenants sections 8 and 9, where the Lord is counseling Oliver Cowdery, like, you to work it out in your mind, and I will tell you in your heart and in your mind if it is right. And if there's a stupor of thought, then you know that that's not the Lord speaking to you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of been a guideline for me, because I'm more of a I don't want to say I'm a logically thinking person. I try to work with data and evidences, right? But there's also a lot of things that I don't have data and evidences for. Yeah. But they're more just things that I kind of can speculate on and I can reason with. So I think that's how the Spirit speaks to me, is through reason and logic.
At least for me, in my own opinion, it sounds I don't know how to put it, just very simple as like a feeling.
For those who watching, I can't sit up here and tell you guys that I can spot out when I'm feeling the Spirit. I've never been able to do that in my life. Dude, I remember they said, like, you feel the Spirit, you feel it burning in the bosom. Mm. I'm over here praying, you know what I'm saying? Just, I can't.
That's not Taco Bell. It's not the Spirit. That's not Taco Bell, baby.
But dude, that's the thing. I've never felt it in that regard. It's like every time I've asked for an answer, I always looked back and realized, like, reflecting, okay, that was for sure the Spirit. The times that I know that I'm feeling the Spirit when I'm speaking is when I listen back and I learn something. It's because there have been times when I have prayed before making even content videos on Instagram, and I've just gone off the cuff, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that for sure wasn't me. I'll like have a talk while I'm speaking in church. Someone will say, I appreciate when you said this, and I'm thinking to myself, Lord, it just brings an insecurity. Like, I just want to be able to know that I'm strong enough to do it on my own. But it's like my constant reliance on the Lord. It's just like, okay, that was me. Don't worry. That was me. That was me. All my failures, all my things have been turned into, all my failures that have been turned into blessings. I looked along the lines, like, what decisions did I make to get there? All of them have been, in my opinion, because it's my life, divinely inspired. But it for sure wasn't because of my strength.